what is one thing, your one singular thing that you want to change within AUSD? If you get elected and go to your full term, what is that one thing that
Improve in the communications with uh, the with the students, with the parents, with the teachers, staff, and community. Is to have consistent communications so that we can have transparency when it comes to dealing with the budget, when it comes to dealing with decision making, when it comes to decisions of the curriculums, of all the major issues or decisions that a school district needs to make. Performances. I think Hamburg's school district teachers and staff are doing a magnificent job already. What I see missing is transparency. A lot of times things are very last minute. Things don't get communicated, and the one thing that I see that was missing, at least what my former students are telling me, is that certain schools are invisible to the school board, to the district. They felt unheard. They felt that when they go to the school board meeting, when they speak up, that they get chastised for it, that they get turned away, that they are not heard, that they don't, that nothing gets done. And so I want to make sure that is that's going to change. And the one thing that I want to improve on is having open, honest dialogues, conversations with all stakeholders when it comes to big decision making, the budget, the curriculums, the safety of students, their health, both physical health and mental health. So there are so many things, but bottom line goes back down to communication and transparency.
So bridging the gap of
Right.
having exactly. The school board not be this monolith in schools, yes. And being having communication between families and students. So yeah. I know I said that was going to be the last thing, but there was something that at the very beginning of our kind of like working relationship, there's not a lot of Asian American advocacy, right? Yeah. A lot of and I talked about this with my previous guest, is that there's this model minority idea of like we just work, we don't talk, we can't complain because we're getting a better deal and a better situation in the U.S. And therefore we shouldn't bite the hand that's feeding us. We could dive deeper into this on a future podcast, but I want to ask you what inspire you as an Asian American to go out there and to advocate and to do these things that are not necessarily this idea of this model minority of staying quiet.
Thanks for that. This model minority bullshit where it's just and where Asians have allowed themselves to be used to keep other people of color down by being touted as a model minority, and that just aggravates me beyond belief. And the racism that and some of the Asians Americans are getting a wake-up call now because with COVID-19, they bought into it. They bought into essentially a white supremacist type attitude where they're making money, they're part of the group, part of the clique, yet when it came down to it, they're getting hate crimes against them as well, right? So hopefully more people realize that this model minority stuff is harmful to other people of color. And it aggravates me beyond belief in terms of housing when we see that happening with some of the protesters that we saw in Temple City against that supportive housing project were actually Asian, Asian Americans as well, and that's really hurtful. And it's our own people who are struggling, right? There was an article in LAist about the boarding houses in our area in Monterey Park, where a lot of Asians and Asian Americans were living in effective boarding houses here because they couldn't afford it, paying by the week. And these are waiters, waitresses in our restaurants and things. And they're just, we're just hurting ourselves when we do that. And it's just, we've got to change that. And, you and I were both, working in that regard to try to fight against that. And we've got a ways to go. But yeah, that's a whole other topic to get into.
Yeah.
And I would love to have more time to get into that and the whole model minority thing. And myself coming from far from a model minority type family and extended family, and yeah, that irks me. I won't get started though.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel like
Yeah.
this as many of my guests are on this podcast is deserves a part 2 in the future. Yeah. Because it's I just wanted to kind of highlight, there are the different types of people, and like those of whom that are against the notion and ingrained that we have to be the quiet Asian class that doesn't rock the boat or don't talk about things that are very political.
Oh yeah, exactly. Good point. And yeah, exactly. And having a more representative government, right? We're about 60% Asian American here in Alhambra, and it's not reflected, and the race and class of that is not reflected in local government. And exactly, having that stereotype of being the quiet one who just keeps their head down, works hard, doesn't complain. That's got to change. That's ridiculous, right? And a lot of times being spoken over because of that, not being given a voice, assuming that you don't have anything to say, or you're too shy to say something. And combined in this city, as we were trying to get over, was the using language as a barrier, weaponizing language on purpose, right? And having to speak in this certain argot that the city council speaks in, which is used as a barrier for entry.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah, that really does irk me, and it's I want to bring on somebody that knows and understands what's happening in Hong Kong, because it's we to some degree as an Asian American community, like we're like, oh yeah, let's do that. Yeah, that is a time when protests are good. That's a time when those things are it's you're fighting against a government that wants to impose on your freedoms, right? And that's easy, and it's good to box into like a little narrative. But if something like Asian Americans for Black Lives, then it becomes this whole contentious conversation within the Asian American community. It's like, do we even support this? Or there's conversations of like, well, this is a Black issue, not an Asian issue. And what I'm hearing from some people, they're just flat out saying those things,
I see,
and saying like, why is it that Hong Kong can have protests against police brutality, yet if it's happening here in the States, we're quiet?
Yeah,
It's not agree.
Right. Exactly. I think that as an Asian American, I could also say that it's so short-sighted if we are to not support our Black brothers and sisters. It's so ridiculous, right? That we're all in this together, and if we think that that we're accepted and that we should be accepted as part of this white supremacist type thinking, white class and privilege, has a big wake-up call coming. And it's
Mm-hmm.
also the fact that we need to stick together and fight for a common cause in terms of economic equality. Also, I think there's a lot of groups here that upset me that they're very socially inclusive, cliques, but they're not necessarily fighting for economic equality as well. And unless you do both, it's effectively saying that you're going to uh, 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 um, spread inequality evenly, or it's just, as one person said, it's like effectively you're just getting a room on a higher floor of a sinking ship, right? So we have to stick together here. I'm not saying it's just all about class. It's not all about race. It's both, and I think that's where we get a lot of resistance when we start talking about social inclusion. Yes, that's definitely something that should happen. When we talk about also bringing with that economic equality, which will help especially people of color, that's where a lot of so-called friends before start getting threatened because it's threatening their bottom line, right? So, yeah. So,
Right. I'm not sure if your parents see you talking about Black Lives Matter's issue as disrespectful to them.
I think I feel like they're opening up more, that I have more of a political opinion about things. Earlier in like, say, college and high school, very idealistic, very much unnuanced, wanting to change everything that I could see in front of me. But now it's almost as if like I need to kind of break it down and really explain, like, this is happening because of X. And in the framework of what's been happening in the Black Lives Matter movement, it's like this is happening because there's over policing and almost a profiling of, like, police treat people of color a certain way versus person that are non-person of color. And I'm trying to, like, let them recognize that, because of course they'll have police that interact with them in a very positive way, because of course they own a donut shop. They're already going to have a certain feeling and certain support within the community. But at that point, connecting it to the Black Lives Matter movement, it's like I can't necessarily dictate what the movement is about, because I'm not Black, but I can be I'm willing to listen, hear what these activists has to say, and then try to translate as much as possible to my parents' language what's been happening, and like, why is this important, like, try to really think about how get into the shoes and in the mindset of what it means to be Black in the US.
Right. Yeah. So my parents, they see me speaking out with a different subject, I guess, that I have more knowledge on, as disrespectful, thinking that I'm trying, as a child, I'm trying to teach them something. I think some of my friends have reached out to me saying that they have also experienced this issue, and saying, it's just not a constructive conversation. It's just screaming and yelling matches. And it feels like our parents are taking it really personally when it's not meant to be like that.
Yeah.
Right. And the image of police brutality, what I think a lot of immigrant parents see is that, wow, America, this, like, the reason I use the word America is this is what we think, like America, the beautiful and whatnot, not the United States, but America, this progressive, this amazing country, this westernized nation superpower. How can they have bad police? It's not a thought. Like, yes, police are people too. There are great police. There are bad police. They're individuals that control their own actions. And so when we see corrupt police in different countries, the immigrants can't contextualize or can't see that American polices can be bad too.
Mm-hmm.